what's been your favorite room to perform in? And let's stay Louisiana.
Club 337. Not even close. I mean, in my opinion, it's the prime spot in Louisiana. Everyone who is a comedian in the South should be performing there or should be trying to figure out how to perform there. It is the hottest room. Even the shows that are bad are good, and that's normally a great sign.
Glad to have you. I'm Carter Simoneaux, host of AcadianaCasts Presents. You can follow AcadianaCasts on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, mostly prevalent on the TikTok and the Instagram right now. But the website will be back up soon. If you want to get into making content, making podcasts, go to AcadianaCasts.com. You can reach out to me via info@AcadianaCasts.com as well. Website's under construction, but we're going to get it nice and running soon. And at the meantime, we're just talking to really cool people, doing some cool projects, and just trying to build this thing as much as we can. But your support, of course, is the best way to help us keep bringing you the type of content that I want to bring, that you guys want, and we'll just build from there. Speaking of building, we have an up-and-coming great comic right here from Acadiana. His name is Tyler Arceneaux, in the studio with us today.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen him live. I'm just telling you that I saw you first time after the Robert Kelly show a few months ago back at Club 237.
This summer show?
Yeah.
Back in like April? Yeah, what a banger, man.
Yeah, the 420.
Yeah, and he did our live podcast too. Our only live podcast we've done in front of like 7 people. But it was live.
Yeah, so let's kind of start there. I'm obviously in the podcast game. What was it like doing the whole live podcast element?
I was nervous. Because it's a little bit different. Like, whenever you know that you can edit whatever and post and it's just like 2 or 3 people, it feels a lot different than, everything I say, these people are going to hear now. There is no editing, so
right.
It was nerve-wracking and a little bit of nerves involved for sure. But we kind of just wound up Bobby and let him go because he's consummate professional, and he can talk forever, so he really kind of carried the show there. But it was fun. It was cool doing banter back and forth with some audience members here and there as well. Very different than what we normally do. So,
and the name of the podcast is We're Dying Down Here.
Dying Down Here. Yeah.
Now there's a documentary or a show. Is it called We're Dying Up Here?
I'm Dying Up Here.
I'm Dying Up Here
is a book that is it's about the this time period in Los Angeles comedy where comedians weren't getting paid. It's like the late 70s, early 80s. There was a lot of problems in the industry during that time, and there was a protest where all of the comedians kind of drew a line and were like, hey, we're not performing anymore unless we get paid. And I think there was somebody ended up committing suicide during that time, a guy named Steve Lubekin. So that's kind of what the book is about. It's chronicling that time period. And then they made a Stars series that was like 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And it was like loosely based on that, but it was fiction.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Santino's in that.
Absolutely, yeah. Santino and Maz Jabroni, a bunch of people, yeah. But yeah, so that's obviously a play on that.
Right.
We're dying down here. The idea is Lafayette, Louisiana isn't necessarily the best place to try to be a comedian, but also it kind of is. We're trying to build something, make something happen, but also we're very much so dying down here. We're, if you're in New York, you get to do 10 open mics in a night. You can get on stage as much as you want. It may not be quality stage time, but you can practice the art. Down here, we have 1 open mic in this city a week right now.
Right.
It's a one that I host with John Merrifield. But yeah, so that's the idea is we're dying down here. When you live down here, you gotta work hard if you want to get good at comedy.
Tell folks what the open mic is.
Cité des Arts. I'm awful at saying this. Like, as long as I've lived here, I've never been able to say this.
I feel you. Hey, we're both EAUX guys.
Yeah,
but it's so hard for me to do the French stuff.
Yeah. Cité des Arts. Every Tuesday night, downtown Lafayette. It's a great show. If you've never been to that, It's a nice theater. They have 3 stages. We do our show on the small stage in the cafe. We serve alcohol. We have a pretty good crowd every week, anywhere between a dozen to 20 plus comedians sometimes. We get out of towners all the time. We book headliners from different places, from Houston to Florida, so a lot of southern regional comedy acts.
Well, like I was telling you before we started recording, most of the podcasts that I listen to are comedy podcasts.
Nice.
I love stand-up comedy. The only reason I haven't gone up on stage to do it myself and try like an open mic is because I'm scared I'm going to fall in love with it and just go that route.
Yeah.
Same thing with like music.
Yeah, then you're toast. Then you're never gonna. None of this is ever gonna come to fruition. Like,
right.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love it. And you hear comedians talk about different. I love the inside game, kind of inside baseball
yeah,
about comedy. And you hear a lot of comics talk about how like New Orleans is a terrible market for comedy. I know a couple of guys who try to get the scene going out there, or have been for the past 10, almost 15 years now. But what JP has done, and by proxy, you and some of the other people who are part of this community have really like put Lafayette on the map as far as places where comics want to go.
Right.
What besides the work that all y'all have done, kind of laying the groundwork for that? What would you attribute that to? Is it the crowds? Like what is it?
It's the ability to bring in a national comedian. So JP back in 2014, out of the hookah lounge that we all started in, started bringing. I think that year he brought Tom Segura was the first big show.
Yeah.
Nate Bergazzi came that year. I mean, see where those guys are now.
Arenas.
They were playing like, I think we sold for Nate 50 tickets. And then he just did 7,000 tickets at the Cajun Dome a few months ago. Like, what?
That's insane.
Crazy. But so that's what helped build it, right? You get people in the door, and then you get to some of those people will come see the local showcases. And if they come see the local showcases and they start to realize that, like, oh, some of the local comedians, they got some riz, they're pretty good. Oh, they're working out at these open mics. Well, let me go see those open mics. So it's a trickle down effect, I think. And that attracts more comedians. And the more comedians you have, the healthier scene you have. So.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say the audience of this, it's pretty diverse as far as what people are interested in. And, that's partly my fault because, I'm just so interested in so many different things and whatnot. Sure. But I try to make the hook, South Louisiana. But what could you tell folks who, comedy is so huge right now. It's
bigger than it's ever been.
It's in everyone's algorithms. Comedians are making hand over fist. Some of them are, of course, some aren't.
Yeah.
But as it becomes more competitive, but there's more. I feel like there's more access points. But what would you tell someone about kind of the art of forming material? Like, because you kind of like hinted at it, like you have to have stage time.
Yeah. So I'll start by saying this: comedy and music, for instance, are very different. Maybe people know a little bit more about music as like an art form. It's a little bit more,
especially here.
Yeah, it's a little bit more available to people. So, the truth is you do need to be on stage. If you're a musician, you need to be on stage to practice as a performer, but not the art itself. You can sit in your room by yourself and become a great guitar player. You may not be the best on stage, but you can sit in your room and practice guitar. You cannot sit in your room and practice comedy. The only way to do it is to get on stage and fail in front of people. It's the only art form by which, in order to get better, you have to practice in front of a live audience. It just is what it is. So I think that is a huge, that's like the barrier to entry almost, because some people can never get over stage fright. Like, so because they can't sit in their room and practice, the only thing you could do is rehearse lines, which, here to tell you, that doesn't get you very far in comedy. There's so much more to the nuance of it. But I live by this. As a young comedian, you really should be building your act 5 minutes at a time. Not saying that you need one 5-minute act and then you build another 5-minute act. I just mean, like, you need to focus on getting a good 5 minutes. And when that 5 minutes is good, turn that into 7, turn that into 10. You build a couple minutes at a time, but I think we live in an age where, like, Kill Tony is very popular.
Right, the 1 minute.
Bro, I've seen some awesome comedians that I know are killers. Some of the best in their cities not do well in that minute because they just tried to jam, you know, a joke that wasn't a minute long into that minute. I just think that it's such a bad medium for comedy, and it's kind of given people this false sense of how comedy is built. Like you're asking about the, you know, how acts are built. There's a lot of comedians, especially in Austin, who are building their act 1 minute at a time. And I'm not suggesting that that's not enough. It's just comedy is so much more than that. It is like you really do need more than a minute. Some people do not translate in a minute, you know. And the other bad thing about Kill Tony, I know that wasn't the original question, but
Yeah.
I'm terrified personally.
I've heard you.
Yeah.
I've heard you not have the most pleasant things to say about Kill Tony.
I personally am terrified that even if I have a good minute, I'll have a shitty interview. So it's like, what good is it? Because if I look stupid during the interview, nobody's gonna care how good my set was.
Right, and I've also seen like people who have just a terrible minute just turn it around the interview, and then all of a sudden
those people will get booked for some reason.
Well, so some of the Kill Tony universe is coming through the Lafayette. Like I know Camp Patterson's coming in May. I know that there's like the showcase of like some of the Kill Tony.
Yeah, there are definitely some exceptions to what I'm saying. Like Camp Patterson's a great comedian, but he started in Orlando and did comedy for years before he popped on Kill Tony.
Right. Ari Matty in
he's another great
Estonia.
Yeah, he's great. But yeah, there's just I think that I don't blame the producers. I don't blame Tony. I don't blame any of the comics he brings on. I don't blame any of them. They're trying to create a product, and it's obviously working. It's the largest live podcast in the world. But what I blame is the bookers who look at the people who get famous from Kill Tony and say, I'll give you $500 to come do 30 minutes when they barely have one. And that's just the reality of it. So I think that it's kind of created a weird state because we're in a comedy boom, but also a big part of the boom is because of like all the false prophets isn't the right word, but there's a lot of like comedians that don't have it that are getting their shots. And this definitely comes from a place of jealousy. I understand that. Like, I'm not making any qualms about that.
A jealous comedian?
Yeah. I am definitely acting out right now.
Well, what's interesting about, you know, you talk about comedians needing to get these reps, and you know, get your 5 minutes, then turn into 7 minutes, right? But whenever you're doing with the lack of stage time in Louisiana, how are you able to do that when, let's say, the crowds might be the same people over and over and over again? Like, is that just like you have to get over that? And like,
it's tough. You
like,
guys,
I've watched this exact same crowd here last night, but I'm here to work on the craft.
The biggest mistake people make is they're scared to do the same material again, I think, in the beginning, which is like, you got to do the same things over and over again until they get good. Like, if you believe in a premise, you know, feel free to throw it away, but you got to work hard and do them and say them until you're tired of them. And because that's what it takes to hammer it out. And some people have trouble with that. They also don't realize that's what comedy is. There's so many people who think comedy is just riffing.
Right.
Blows my mind. Like, I literally know every word that I'm going to say. 90% of the words that I say, I know what I'm going to say. I leave a lot of room to like be in the moment and play with the crowd and do stuff like that. But my act is my act, you know?
Right.
And that's most people.
Well, right now you see a lot of crowd work on social media, on TikTok and Instagram Reels. And I feel like it kind of feeds into that idea, like, oh, that's what a comedy show is. I get to like shout at the comedian, and then we get to play with each other.
Thanks, Matt Rife. So that is that's bad too, because it's really just that cultivates bad comedy audience members, because the truth is you should not say anything unless you're spoken to by a comedian at a comedy show. It really has kind of man, the social media aspect of this is crazy. I think it's changed the game in ways that not a lot of us saw. Because like you said, the crowd work stuff, a lot of people do come to a comedy show, sit in the front, and are like just waiting for their turn to talk. And it's like, oh no, that's not what it's about. And then bad comics feed into that. They don't know any better. They're trying crowd work, but they're not even good enough to do crowd work yet. That happens a lot, actually. But, you know.
How's your crowd work?
It's pretty non-existent. I have like parts in my act where I have no problem stopping, polling the audience for something and then digging for material. And I do that pretty well from time to time. But I'm so act oriented. My goal is to build an hour, release a special. Then whatever happens after that, I can feel good about what I've done because I've put my time in now. I'm over a decade in. So it's like, if I walk away from this at any point, it's got to be with something. So I'm really I'm act oriented, focused on building that hour. I've only got like close to 40 minutes, I'd say, if I was being honest. I could do an hour if somebody told me I needed to. I wouldn't feel good about at least 15 minutes of that.
Yeah, I like the subtle kind of things that comedians do to either enhance a joke or just let people like marinate in it. Like I was just watching some of your reels earlier, and you have that microwave joke, and I won't give it away, but even though you've already burned
great,
it, but
yeah.
but I love that joke. But after you say that, the big punchline, you walk over and you just take a little sip of your drink and then put it down, and then the laughter starts to build and build and build and build from there.
Yeah.
So that's an intentional move.
Yeah. So I learned that because you don't know whether it's going to be a slow building punchline or not. So, when I first said that joke, maybe I was just like, okay, everybody get it? Everybody, maybe I expected everybody to laugh right away. I knew it was funny when I first wrote it. It's one of those rare jokes that like it comes off the page and you're like, bingo. That joke was written in 2 different parts. It was a joke that's probably 7 years old. And then the second part, the part that's really good, that part is fairly new, like only like a year and a half old or so. So I got to like marry a new joke with an old joke, and you never know whether they're going to just get it immediately or whether it's going to be a slow build. So once I realized that it's always a slow build, I just learned to like sit in it, and then I love to do little things like in that joke specifically, after the big punchline, I say like 2 more things sometimes where it's like they're not as big laughs as the punchline, but it's okay. I'm helping people get out of the joke and we're still making them laugh.
Is that a tag?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
We call that a tag. Yeah. A lot of comedians will do like tags belong in the front and your big punchline at the end. Dude, sometimes I like to do the big punchline in the middle and then just like let the joke die.
Slow down.
Yeah, there's some lines I'm not willing to get rid of. I'm just accepting that they're not as funny as I thought they were when I wrote them, but I still like them and I want them in my act.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of my tags.
So 10 years in, how are you able to get stage time outside of? Oh, you live in Lafayette?
I do live in Lafayette.
Yeah. So how do you get more stage time? Do you go to Baton Rouge?
Yes. Well, not so much Baton Rouge, but I do travel a lot. My goal is 100 booked shows a year that I did not produce. So I can't book myself on it. And that's easy because I don't produce any shows. But just in case I ever do, I don't count those. So I try to do 2 shows a week on average. Some weeks I'll do 0. Some weeks I'll do 4, right? It is what it is. But Houston is like my phase 2 of material. Like I will write jokes, work them out at my open mic. I might take them to Lake Charles. They have 2 open mics in Lake Charles, 2 a week. They got double the open mics we have.
At the casinos or somewhere else?
No, they got this guy who's essentially just following JP's blueprint, and he's doing it in Lake Charles. He's good friends of ours, and we hook him up with national headliners too.
Cool.
They got a nice venue out there they're building a scene at, and they got 2 mics. So I'll do that. Baton Rouge, if I have to. It's been a little while since I've been to Baton Rouge, but I do like that place. And then I'll go spend like a weekend in Houston and do 6 shows in 2 days. And that's where I catch up. That's kind of, in my opinion, not to throw shade at any other comedians, but I think that's one of the things that separates me from some other people who are just doing like that 5 minutes a week. And that's it. It's like I'm getting that little bit of extra time. When you're doubling or tripling, that means a lot, like 1 to 3 doesn't feel like a lot, but it's triple the stage time or quadruple the stage time of like the average comedian. So I'd say out of all the Lafayette comedians, JP's on stage a lot, but me and JP are definitely the 2 that are on stage the most by far. But it's, I'm also privileged in a lot of ways because I have a good day job and it's super flexible, and it affords me the ability to go do these things.
What you do?
Yeah, I'm a technical consultant for a company called CGI.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been in the company for 8 years. I'm in leadership. So, I've delegated a lot of like the tough work, and so the company's so great. Lot of leave, lot of like floating holidays. I really get to take like a lot of long weekends and go do comedy. And because the job is so good, I can like afford to lose when I do comedy, which is something that not a lot of comedians can do. So that lets me do even more shows, because I can look at a show that somebody else would be like, that's not worth it. I can't lose money and drive there.
Right.
I can.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's privilege. There's no other way to put it. Like, I'm blessed when it comes to that,
Sure. But, you put yourself in that position to.
That's true. I
so.
did. I worked hard to get there. And no doubt about that.
We'll be right back to the episode in just a bit, but first I want to hear from our friends over at NetScore. We're here with the founder of NetScore, Tim Benson, friend of the show. Tim.
Yes, sir.
I'm a small business owner with AcadianaCasts. How can NetScore help me and others like me?
Well, what we see from people that are in similar situations, make sure your website's optimized, make sure that Google recognizes what you do and can easily rank you in Google searches. And also just make sure you're active on social media. I know that's easy to say, but it's so easy to overlook as well too. Make sure you're posting, and you may even want to try some paid advertising, get some more eyeballs your way. So we can easily help out with that.
Okay. How do you guys help out with that?
So we'd find out what service are you primarily doing right now. We could help assist on the social media side. Our team can actually post for you. Just give us an idea of what you like, what your personality is of your business, and we can get content out for you in a done for you format. And then on the website side, listen, if you are not happy with where your website is, or if you don't even have a website, think of your website as your home base on the internet. And that home base has to look really good, and it's got to be visible. So we can help create your website. We can revamp your website, and we can do it pretty fast too. We've got team members of different backgrounds that can fit the personality of your business.
Well, there's all kind of different types of businesses. Like it's like a snowflake. Each one's kind of unique, right? And I use, in part of my business, this new AI in certain things, whether it's writing copy or in my editing software. But you guys have like an AI element as well that people can use with NetScore.
Right. So what's really cool is I developed an AI marketing assessment. So you can plug in all of your information about your business, and it will give you a diagnostic of what things you're doing great and what things you might need to work on. And then we can get that report and know exactly where to start in your business.
Well, okay, I'm sold. Where should I go to find out more information?
So you can go to netscorepro.com or send us an email, info@netscorepro.com. Our team will be more than happy to help anybody out, help you guys out too.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you, NetScore. Let's get right back to the conversation now. You see all these comedians now with podcasts, and the reason why a lot of them started these podcasts was to help them sell tickets to their shows. Now, of course, the bigger the comedian is, they're able to monetize the show and get all that. But what was it like building a podcast or launching one without an audience?
Well,
because that's what I did.
Well, we still don't have an audience, so
isn't it sad, guys? Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah, I think my last podcast was one of the funnier ones we've done out of like the 25 or 26 we've done, and it had less than 100 views last time I looked. So it is what it is.
But you get some clips out of it. You're able to knock out some content. Get other comedians.
I get follows off of every clip.
Yeah, exactly.
Every single clip I get follows on Instagram.
Just little by little.
A YouTube subscriber here or there. That's what I really want to do, is build that YouTube. But yeah, podcasting. You're putting yourself out there. And it's just one of those things, you don't know if people are going to like it. You don't know if people are going to care. We do a lot of inside comedy baseball. Right. So I do meet like civilians, non-comedy people who listen to our podcast and are like, oh, I love your podcast. But like, I get that a lot of people don't want to listen to, two white guys with beards talk about comedy again. That podcast exists 100 times over. Right? We're doing it right now. Right. So I get that, we're not really bringing a whole lot of new things to the table. But we were really hoping that the national acts would help carry the show.
Yeah.
Because what happens is we ask the majority of national acts that come through town, of which there are, dozens and dozens every year. So plenty of opportunities to get people on. That's been the best, I think. I consider what we've done a success just because of that. Because I got to interview Mark Norman in his hotel room. Because I had Bobby Kelly on a live podcast. You know, those types of things I will remember forever, no matter what kind of success we find with it.
Yeah, it's also it's fun. You know, like
dude, it's great.
and especially in your world, whenever you get to talk with people that you admire, like, it's
100%.
It's got to be just awesome. And like the hard part is like not fangirling in the episode.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I try to be cool. JP always fans girls. Like he's always like, "Yeah, we've had you 6 times, and I remember in 2014 you were here in 2015," and I'm just like, "Yeah, well." I'm trying to think of the next joke.
Right. Yeah, you're trying to cook.
I'm just playing, but yeah.
So what JP does with Lafayette comedy, I've part of the reasons why I hear that people like coming to Lafayette is because he's a comedian and he's able to relate to the comedian and make sure that they're taking care of as best as he's able to do. Is that the norm for shows across the U.S.?
No, because I think the norm. Well, in scenes like this, it is.
Mm-hmm.
You're not often going to run into a producer who's not also a comedian in smaller scenes. But the clubs that most national acts play at, they're not being booked by a comedian. Mm-hmm. They're being booked by a booker who works for the club, and 100% they do not consider everything there is to consider about comedy. So I don't think I've ever heard that until you said that, but it makes perfect sense of why somebody like, Mark, who has no reason to come here, by the way. Mark, I did a show with Mark, 2 shows in a weekend where he sold 3,000 tickets for those 2 shows. Why would he come to Lafayette? Well, he likes JP, he likes the city, he likes the scene we've cultivated.
And he's a workaholic.
Yeah, for sure. He's addicted to the stage. But yeah, I do. I think that's interesting that you said that, and it makes perfect sense that somebody would look at JP and be like, not just a comedian, but a good comedian. I mean, JP is funny, and he's earned the right to open for national touring comedians, not just because he's booking them, but because he's funny. So, I think that all matters.
Well, that kind of helps me lead into something I wanted to do with you. Before I hand you off the phone, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a bunch of different comedians.
Okay.
And then you're just going to slide to each one, and then later in post I'll put them on screen.
Okay.
So everyone can see it. But first, I want you to define what a hack is.
Define?
From a comedian, what is a hack?
This is going to be very broad, but it's a bad comedian, but they're not. It could be because they don't know any better. That's fine, but it's that they're doing something very specific that the other comedians would find cringe. So a good example of that is telling street jokes, right? If I get on stage and I do like a little Johnny joke or a Boudreaux Thibodeau joke or a knock-knock joke, those are hacky street jokes that everybody's heard before. That would be considered hacky.
Cheap laughs.
A meme, if I saw a meme that got a bunch of haha reacts on Facebook and I reword that meme in such a way that it's now a joke, every other comedian's going to know, first of all, so don't do that. But also that's hacky, right? There's things that used to not be hacky that are hacky now because that's how that works, right? Like a lot of low-hanging racial humor type of stuff would be considered hacky. Like just your very like stereotypical things that would get you in trouble with DEI, HR now. Those types of things at one point when they were brand new weren't hacky, but they're hacky now.
The other side of the coin, whenever Trump was first getting to like the political stage, and then every comedian had like Trump jokes.
Hacky, again, right. It's such a broad term, it's hard to define, but I think we're doing a good job here. But you're right. It's like the overuse of things that are not funny, and it's just it's bad.
Yeah. Well, after that, now I want you can take my phone.
Okay.
Don't slide until I tell you.
Okay.
But you tell me the name of the comedian that should be there, and then you tell me whether or not they're a hack.
All right. Buddy Hackett, despite having hack in his name, this is an example of what I was saying by things are not hacky when they first start. He's too old to call hacky because what he was doing wasn't hacky when he was doing it. If somebody did this now, we'd be like, that's a hack. But it's because of hack it, right? That's our irony. I
wonder if that's where the term comes from.
Maybe. A good example of that is I was watching a buddy of mine, Ken Edwards, one of my favorite comedians in the world. We were watching the roast of Richard Pryor together. And there's a lot of racial humor in it, right? Because you got Richard Pryor, you got Paul Mooney, and you got a bunch of white comedians like Robin Williams and a whole bunch of white comedians from the time period. And there's a lot of racial humor on it. And like, it's a bunch of jokes I've heard before. And I said out loud, I was like, Ken, it's funny, but it's hacky. And Ken looks at me and goes, no, this is why it's hacky.
Right.
And that's when I realized what my view on the whole entire subject was very short-sighted. It's like something can only be hacky if it used to not be hacky. Mm-hmm. So it's a very interesting thing. And Buddy Hackett is a perfect example of that, I think.
Okay. Who's next?
Carrot Top. This kind of similar, right? It's like, I think nowadays Carrot Top's hacky, which is why you don't hear much about him. Mm-hmm. But, he was so popular for a reason, right? But you can only have like one or two of these kind of people at a time. Right. Otherwise, the rest of them are hacky. Mm-hmm. And so... yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of people hate this guy.
He gets shit on all the time, but I know he's got like a Vegas residency, and
he's a good comedian from what I hear too. Mm-hmm. Like people who say they see his act now is like they say good things about it. I haven't seen it, but I'm a fan of Carrot Top.
All right, next,
Dane Cook. Okay, Dane Cook was one of my first favorite comedians.
Same.
I loved that first album and then Vicious Circle. Those were both very good. I see why people would think he's hacky for sure. And I think what it is like he's not real jokey. He doesn't like write the swerve. He doesn't write the punchline. He does like outlandish takes on things, and he's really big on the act out.
And real quick, explain what an act out is.
So whenever you're like doing a lot of movement, right? So some comedians just stand there and talk into the microphone, and you got to picture everything that's happening. When you're starting to be theatrical on stage and, do certain things to mimic maybe what you're talking about, that would be an act out. So,
Robin Williams.
100%. Yeah. Or, Dane Cook.
That might have been the cocaine, but.
From that first Dane Cook Comedy Central half hour, the one that stands out to me as the act out is the Predator impression. He could have just stood there and done the Predator impression into the microphone, but no, he like put his hands up and he moved his head in a weird way, and so a lot of people think that that's obnoxious. I think that that's just taste. I do not think Dane Cook is hacky. However, he has been accused of stealing jokes, which is hacky. So I don't know where that, what that's at.
Okay, he's a hybrid hack.
Yeah, exactly.
But his original, like his first few years when he was dominating and getting to like the arena, like doing the rounds and whatnot, like it was some of my favorite memories as a kid with comedy and downloading to my iPod Touch. And
oddly enough, as much hate as this dude gets, most of the people I talk to, like when we talk about Dane Cook, we talk about it like that. Mm-hmm. We're like, he was really good for his time, or because he's gone now. I mean, he's completely irrelevant now, almost. But there was a time period when he was the comedian.
Yeah.
Like the comedian.
Right.
And he was so big in social media before anyone else was. Mm-hmm. And that's what really made him successful too.
Yeah. Early times of social.
MySpace.
Crazy. R.I.P. All right, who's next?
Jeff Dunham is a hack.
Man, that was another one when I was a kid, because he does a lot of more family friendly stuff with a hint of an edge. But I remember being a kid and watching a bunch of Dane Cook.
Yeah,
or not Dane Cook.
Jeff Dunham. Yeah. So I think that using the puppets to say things that you shouldn't be saying is hacky. That's what's hacky to me about it, because the puppets say things that Jeff Dunham would never say. And I understand that that's the gimmick, but it's also like, are you hiding behind the puppets to be racist? Like that's like my feelings on it.
Just
And
be racist.
I'm not the exactly be like Mark Norman and just be no. I'm not the kind of person that likes to like throw things like that out.
Yeah.
But when it's married with hack and unfunny, it's like it feels racist. Like, but of course, we're talking about a guy who's selling out arenas.
Right.
We're sitting here judging this guy and his puppets, but he's, you know, making hand over fist full of dollars.
Yeah, meanwhile, my setup died a few minutes ago. Hopefully
Yeah,
we can make it seamless in the edit. But
there's a joke by one of my favorite comedians from this area. He started a few years before any of us in this area, and he's from Maurice. And there was no shows here, and he would travel to other cities to do comedy. His name was Lane Loyon. He lives in Denver now. Excellent comedian. Still good friends with him. He had a joke that he would do as a character, Gaston Hebert, the Cajun Juggalo. So he'd paint his face up like an ICP fan and, like, you know, wear crazy outfit. But he had this joke. It's so funny. He goes, who did all them sex crimes? Jeff done them. It's just so simple and so funny, and like throwing shade at, you know, somebody like Jeff. But yeah, that's funny. It's funny to call this, like, I immediately said he's a hack, but also more successful than probably anyone else on this list.
Well, that's the thing about, and you kind of saying it earlier with hacky material, you know, sometimes it does get the laugh, you know.
It does, and that happens at open mics too. And that's not the audience's fault. They don't know any better, you know, but it does make all the comedians roll their eyes real hard and start talking in group chats.
All right, I got a couple more.
Sure. Andrew Schultz, I don't think he's a hack. I don't think I've ever heard him say hacky things. I think that he's not as funny as some of his contemporaries for how successful he is. I think that he's real good at the soundbite. Off the
I think he's a genius in marketing.
100%, right? I mean, the stuff he did during COVID is really what made him blow up. And you know, his YouTube special has like 10 million views now or something crazy. And although I watched the special and I enjoyed it, you know, somewhat, I'm not a big fan of the jokes. I don't think he's hacky though. I think that he's a fairly decent comedian. I just think he's like, you know, his contemporaries are so much better in my opinion. Like Shane Gillis and Joe List and Mark Norman. Those guys are just leagues above him.
Yeah, Shane's my current GOAT right now.
He's the millennial GOAT.
Millennial GOAT.
Yeah.
But I wanted to put in one. I guess he could be controversial, but someone who, you know, who's a national comic right now who's working
100%
in this list, and then we have one more.
This guy is a hack. JP Leonard, God, the biggest hack on this list by far. No, that's so funny. It's a new headshot too. I love it.
Oh yeah, yeah, dude, man. Like he used to be a little bigger. You're a bigger guy. Like, you get mad at him for cutting the weight.
I'm trying to catch up. I'm working on it. I'm down 15 pounds. I had a lot to lose, so it's gonna take a while. But
is fat funny?
Yeah, I don't think that like you should stay fat to stay funny though.
Right.
That's not like that. I don't think that there's a world where that makes any damn sense. But I do think there is something to like a lot of people lose weight and like they're just not funny anymore for some reason. I don't know what that's about. I hope that doesn't happen to me. It didn't happen to JP.
JP is hilarious.
One of the best jokes I've heard recently was a roast joke written by Ken Edwards, oddly enough. And he said it recently at Roast Battle League. JP was judging it, and JP was throwing shots at Ken. And Ken said, you're just mad you lost all that weight, but it's because you stopped eating so much shit on stage.
I saw that clip. Okay.
I mean, dude, I fell out my chair.
Yeah.
Couldn't breathe because it's just like such like calling another comedian, especially when they are funny, but finding a funny way to call them not funny is like, that's one of my favorite things to do, especially if it's like rooted in a little bit of truth and it like can actually like elicit feelings. God.
Oh yeah. So what was that? That y'all hosted? You know, roast battle is its own thing.
Yeah, roast battle,
but it moves around from market to market. Or?
Yeah, it's mainly out of LA. Brian Moses is the guy who started it. You know, roast battle as a as a brand was really started at the Comedy Store in LA. And so now it's done at the Mothership in Austin, and they have like official leagues. They do them in New Orleans now, and they do little spin-off shows. They do them in Dallas. Lafayette got one of the spin-off shows. Brian himself came and hosted it, and JP put up a bunch of Lafayette and regional comedians on, and I mean, tore it up.
Yeah,
it was an amazing show.
Dustin Poirier was one of the hosts. Was one of the
Dustin
judges.
Is so funny, bruh. Had no idea how good he was going to be. That's just awesome. Killed it. I mean, everything he said was funny. And there's another joke that was said about Dustin, arguably the best joke of the night. Dustin was firing shots at Ken, and Ken's response was, I'm not scared of you, because all I have to do is get behind a title and you'll never get to me. And bro, I mean, another one. Ken Edwards, shout out. We've used his name like 3 or 4 times, but he's one of the goats of the area for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we as a society, I feel like, because, you know, from the Friars Club to the Comedy Central to Netflix to, you know, local and regional, with Roast Battle, like, we love roasts. Yeah, audiences do. Why? Why do you think that is?
I could
put on my best James Lipton impression.
Fun. I mean, some people don't like it. There are comedians who hate participating in it and refuse to. But the free hall pass to be mean to somebody, who doesn't want that? Yeah. Especially if you're not like a mean person. Like, most of the best roasters I know are the coolest people. Would never say any of that stuff to you in real life, but they've just been itching, to write something. Every week at my open mic, I play a You Look Like game with the comedians, where if they so choose to say a You Look Like joke about me when they're on stage, whether it be at the beginning of their set, the end, or just in their set, I'll say one back to them that I try to write on the spot. Sometimes I repeat myself a lot, but I try to write new ones every week. And my favorite joke about me of that night, that person gets to come do extra time and get like a featured spot the next week. So I do that every week. So I think that has helped cultivate a really cool feeling at our open mics, where not only are you watching comedians get up and be funny, but everybody's trying to take shots at the host, because I'm on the mic every time and I cook people. I don't hold back, and my jokes land 95% of the time. Nice. So everybody's trying to like get their shit in against me. So I think it's great. Last night somebody told me I look like I go to schools and do hip hop about how drugs are bad. They told me I look like a school shooter who let the lunch ladies go. This is the best one. You're going to appreciate this. John Merrifield said this about me. I look like I watched Theo Von. Sorry, The Oven.
That's so good.
The one, right?
That's so good. Oh, wow. So I've seen the clips from the You Look Like. Yeah. So that comes from your...
That's its own show. Okay. So it's I do that because of You Look Like, honestly. But You Look Like is a brand that was started... if I had to guess, I think it was out of Memphis. I know that the guy who runs it now is from the Memphis scene, and they used to do You Look Like shows in Memphis and put them on YouTube. But now he lives in Houston, and he runs You Look Like at a couple different clubs around there, including the Improv, which is that's a huge club, big brand name. They have improvs all over. So he does a You Look Like show at the Improv where it's a roast battle, but you're forced to do You Look Like jokes. You're not doing your typical like deep cut roast jokes. I love that because it forces everybody to be shallow, which is good for me, because the one thing I hate doing is having to preface a joke and teach the audience something first. And a lot of your typical roast, when you watch the videos, you'll notice that the comedian has to waste time saying something like, Sharon's dad died a few years ago of cancer, and then get into their joke. I hate that. I don't like having to set up jokes like that. So You Look Like you don't need to do that. You just do, Carter looks like the bass player for Creed, or whatever, Yeah. That was a bad one, but
hold me now. Well, man, this has been a real pleasure, kind of, getting to do the inside baseball with you and learn more about the kind of the art that I love taking in so much, and I've got a whole list of just comedy bits that are mostly probably unusable. But one of these days, I'm going to go to an open mic, and
Yeah, dude, come to mine.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that'd be
I'll
great.
try to bust a couple out. Before we kind of wrap up here, kind of maybe shift the gear a little bit away from comedy. But let's get that that Louisiana hook.
Right. Hell yeah.
I've been trying to do like a rapid fire of like Louisiana questions, and I honestly haven't prepared the way for them that I probably should. I really should, like, this is something here I should like outsource some of these questions and get the audience involved and whatnot, but I'm an idiot, so it's just whatever the top of the dome.
Sure.
But some of the ones that we've been asking people are, do you put potato salad in your gumbo?
Yes,
you do,
alongside the rice.
Okay.
Yeah, both.
Okay, alongside the rice.
Yeah, both. Yeah, scuba rice, scuba potato salad. Bam.
Okay.
Yeah. Do
you dust your crawfish?
I don't mind it either way. I don't boil crawfish, but I don't mind it. If I'd probably say I prefer not.
What is your least favorite road to drive on in Lafayette?
Johnson Street. I take that back. The section of Pinhook between like Collie Saloon.
That's become
and
a
South
favorite
College.
recently. Is
Bro. The lanes are
Or should least favorite.
unreasonably small.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's terrifying.
That's because it used to be made for horse carriages.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of the South Side. Like everything Collie Saloon and down, I kind of stay away from.
Corporate Lafayette.
Yeah, it's just like it's become Costco Central, and it's like it just feels too guppy.
Do you have a favorite watering hole?
Ooh, Cafe Cottage.
Okay.
Yeah, Ken, my buddy Ken is the kitchen manager over there. He has menu items that he created, menu items named after him. That's where we take a lot of national comedians after shows. We just drive a mile down the road to cafe and hang out. Great food, great atmosphere, great drinks. I love that place. Yeah.
What's your what's been your favorite room to perform in? Let's stay Louisiana.
Club 337. Not even close. I mean, in my opinion, it's the prime spot in Louisiana. Everyone who is a comedian in the South should be performing there or should be trying to figure out how to perform there. It is the hottest room. Even the shows that are bad are good, and that's normally a great sign. As far as Louisiana goes, since we don't have real clubs, we just don't. That's the one. I mean, I've done them all, from Shreveport to New Orleans. I've done them all. Pineville, Mandeville. I've done every little daiquiri shop along the way, bro. And Club 337 is, up to this point, the best thing going. So,
what's been the weirdest show that you've had to do, just trying to grind and get gigs?
Man, I'll be honest. I just mentioned the daiquiri shop thing. Mm-hmm. That's a thing, bro. Like, I'm a big fan of, just because they allow you to run a comedy show there doesn't mean you should. I think producers should be a little bit more picky about their spots. And I've had to do several shows where, we're just putting up a PA in Frosty's daiquiris, and there's, people are getting off work. They have no idea what's happening. We're ambushing them with comedy and then starting to do things like demand that they shut up and listen. And they don't work out well. There was this one time I was in Lake Charles doing a daiquiri shop, and it's just like I described. There was no tickets sold. There's no signs anywhere saying there's comedy. People are just walking in. You got Sulphur High School coaches coming in after football practice to just drink a beer, and you see somebody like me up on stage trying to wrangle the crowd and get people to pay attention and shut up. And there was this one older gentleman heckling every comedian before me, and I was headlining. I was supposed to do like half an hour or something, so I'm already dreading it, because half an hour is a long time, and then half an hour in an atmosphere like this is eternity. And the guy was heckling me before I got on stage. The host brought me up, and this guy was talking shit to me as I was walking up to the stage. So I'm going into this with a deficit. I immediately start kind of like talking shit to this guy, The host walks up to confront him and ask him to be quiet, and he immediately stands up and gets in the host's face. So before I could even get into anything, I got the host and this random person about to get to fisticuffs, like right in front of everybody. And everybody's just like jaw dropped watching this play out, and they're in each other's face yelling at each other. And I'm on the mic like trying to do you look like jokes about this old guy. You know, I'm like, oh, you look like you collect Marlboro miles in a Lowe's bucket. You know, shit like, I'm just trying to be funny. But you can't always win in those situations, right? And I remember the feeling of losing. Like everything I said was a loss because I'm not getting him to shut up. He's going to keep coming back. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter how funny it is. It doesn't matter how hurtful it is or how much I put him in his place. What I ended up doing a couple minutes in after just failing over and over again was he was like signaling to his friends or something. And I was like, what are you doing? Trying to tell them to steal second base or something? What are you doing, man? And that kind of got like a little bit of a laugh. And then I was like, look, I want you to understand something. You see, there's a lot of people that are just sitting down trying to watch the show, right? You're not just like ruining my time right now. You're ruining all of their time. And they started clapping. And that got him to say he was sorry. And like, but I didn't know to do that until I did it, right? I spent a lot of time trying to be combative with him. Really, I should have done something like that up top. It's a lesson learned. But that's the one that sticks out as like a battle, because the truth is most shows are pretty fine. You know, if they're not great, they're fine. Like I won't talk shit on most shows, but that one will always stand out as like, I can't believe that happened.
There's got to be a level of personal accountability when it comes to your craft. Like, okay, was it the room, or was my comedy not up to, up to speed? But you've done enough, especially with like using material in different rooms. You know what kind of generally what gets a pop, what doesn't.
Exactly. That's experience.
Yeah.
That it just is what it is. A younger comedian is not going to be as good in that moment. And, we see it all the time. They just don't quite have the experience. They may walk away from that going, oh, that audience was an enemy. I did those jokes the exact same way last night, and everybody loved it. And it's like, well, you didn't have enough material to swap to something else. Like, you haven't been doing comedy long enough and don't have the experience to, like, be like, oh, this ain't going well. Let me swap to a different style of jokes. Like, let me take some of the edge off of this dirty joke, so I'll swap to this. If you don't have that kind of material, you don't have that option. So, unless you're super self-aware, you're going to walk out of those moments sometimes going, that audience sucked. But I'm here to tell you, and a lot of good comedians I know will say this as well, 90% of the time, it ain't the audience. It just ain't. It is sometimes, and it definitely is sometimes. But most of the time, it's just that comedian, for whatever reason, whether they are experienced or not, they just weren't able to win on that night. And I think that's more often than not what it is.
How does Louisiana crowds compare to, let's say, just some of our neighbors, like a Texas or Alabama or Florida or somewhere else in the Gulf South?
Texas and Louisiana, very similar. Hardworking, blue-collar people who are ready to laugh at anything. They're not offended by much, which is good. I'm not an edgelord by any means, but like the idea that there's some topics that are completely off the table, I kind of disagree with. So like there's a lot of audience members in different places that I've been more, like even Austin, for instance, where like a topic being broached is enough to like turn the audience off completely, regardless of what the comedian's saying, whether they're on the right side or the wrong side. The fact that they're talking about that topic at all is turning people off. You don't find that in Louisiana and Texas quite as much. And I think it's because like I said, it's more regular, everyday people. Maybe they're not as involved in politics or care. They just want to go laugh. Louisiana and Texas, what's up? Some of the other southern states are the same. But yeah, I find Florida's really good too. Florida's kind of wild. Florida, I feel like everybody's drunk all the time. I know people say that about like Louisiana and New Orleans, but in Florida, bro, everybody's chilling and drinking all the time. Some of the best shows I've had were in Florida. Yeah, they're very similar to Louisiana too. Good. I love the southern audiences way better than anywhere else in my opinion. I haven't like been to places like New York quite yet. I'm actually going there this year.
Nice.
But yeah, compared to Vegas or Kansas City or Indianapolis, some of those places I've been, the South is good.
Well, this we got a few episodes backed up, and so this will be coming out. I want to say like maybe mid-March. So don't give me any dates coming up that you got. But like, first off, where can people go find your comedy?
You can find me at the Tyler A on everything: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Venmo, wherever. The big one for me, honestly, is YouTube. I would love YouTube subscribers. When I release something, it is very likely going to be on YouTube unless Netflix comes knocking, which if you're banking on that as a comedian, you're in this for the wrong reasons. So it's likely I release something on YouTube one day, and so I'm trying to build a following there, trying to get monetized on YouTube. But yeah, the Tyler A, and it's thetylera.com. I have ticket links to every show I do is on my website. You can find all kind of stuff about me.
Well, you're a super hilarious comedian and really down to earth guy. It was a pleasure getting to talk to you and kind of pick your brain about some of these topics. We got one little thing that we do to end the episode, but before that, if you give advice to someone, maybe someone in the audience watching this or listening to this, hasn't gone to a comedy show in a while, or maybe they do, or they've been seeing all the clips on their algorithm on TikTok and Instagram of these comics and comedy blowing up on Netflix and Kill Tony and all that. What would be your advice to someone who wants to go to a comedy show as an audience member? How to go about finding the comedian and then, maybe appropriate behavior at a show.
Really I guess that's a two-part question. You got to find the comedian that works for you too. Cause I do think that some comedians are not for everybody, and you're going to find that with national acts. Just cause they're a national act selling tickets does not mean you're going to like what they have to say. And we do see that, where people are like, I didn't know what I was getting into. Well, go watch a YouTube video.
Yeah, we got freaking Sam Hyde coming here this week.
When I was talking, that's what I was thinking. you were on the same page. So there's people that are not going to like that, but also that show is sold out. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be people there who will like it. So that my suggestion is do a little bit of research, right? If you there's a comedian you like and you're seeing their reels, you're going to like them live. Like you're not going to be surprised. Normally people are earnest. If they're putting out material for you to see, that's who they are. So do a little bit of research. I would suggest trying to go see some of the bigger names, the ones who are really good, Shane Gillis, Nate Bargatze, Joe List, Mark Norman. Some closer to home would be like Ali Sadiq. He lives in Houston, great comedian. But yeah, there's as far as like finding the right comedian, you just got to do your research. Don't just pick a comedy show, especially if you're the kind of person that's not laid back. Be self-aware about that, right? If you're
easier said than done.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And then how to act. Be self-aware, be respectful, understand that you're not the show. I think that there are people who want to be a part of the fun and want to be a part of the show, and they're more likely to ruin it with that kind of attitude than anything. I'm not saying you can't, be like if a comedian engages with you and talks to you and is trying to do crowd work, engage back. But don't be the person that's sitting there responding with words to what the comedian is saying. I think people kind of like forget that it's not a two-way thing, right? I don't need you to say things like preach whenever I say something you agree with, or although I appreciate it, the affirmation is great. I don't need you to respond with your opinion out loud about something I'm saying, and that happens more often than you would think. Like,
tell him, brother.
Yeah, exactly. And that's even more okay than kind of what I'm thinking of is somebody literally being like, "Oh no, I can't believe you did that." And it's like,
"Oh no.
Why did you say a whole sentence just now out loud?" You realize I'm the only one with the microphone, right? There's no one else talking except for me and you. So yeah, self-awareness, and don't make it about yourself, because it's not. It's about the people on stage. So yeah, good comedy audience members understand that, and yeah.
Yeah, that's something I feel like I would do if I was a stand-up and got into a heckling situation, is being a musician and know the comfortability around microphones and how they work.
Yeah.
It's just like bah, 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 bah. What?
Yeah,
I'm the only one. I'm the only one.
Sorry. Reminds me of The Wedding Singer, where he's like, "I'm the one with the microphone."
I would.
I'll strangle you with my microphone cord.
I would melt out for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Tyler, man, once again, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Keep grinding. I can't wait to see where your career goes. And
Thanks.
And excited to see in the near future you pop up on some of these showcases that that you become a national comedian and whatnot. And grow your wings and fly away from little old Lafayette.
Man, I hope I'm still here being successful.
Yeah.
I think that would be the ultimate goal.
It seems like more so than ever before, you can do that.
That's possible now.
Right.
That's what's good about the internet. All the negative things we set aside, you can pop where you live now, which was never possible before. People like Sam Talent, Ali Sadiq, they just go work hard on the road, but get to live where they want to live. That's the dream.
Right.
Yeah.
Super cool. And that's coming your way. I totally believe it. We end the show the same way. I'm a hack. So I took Andrew Santino's bit, the way that he ends Whiskey Ginger every single episode. You take a look at this camera. It could be a word, a phrase. It could be advice. It could be something to just impart on the internet land to end this episode with.
Boats and hose.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the show. Since you made it this far, might as well give us a like, a follow, a subscribe, whatever you got to do to alert you that there's a new episode out. Look, it helps us grow, and it allows us to give you the content that, well, you deserve. If you want to be a sponsor, if you want to be a guest, if you just want to berate me, hey, all goes to the same place. info@AcadianaCasts.com. Email info@AcadianaCasts.com. And for more locally sourced podcasts, go to AcadianaCasts.com. Bye.